grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hey guys, what's going on? And it is yet another Twigs Loose Cannon, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I am one of your hosts this evening, this morning, or whenever the hell you decide to listen to this. I am Mike the Birdman. For the last 13 years, that's how I've been known. But I'm not alone as I trek into the kind of seedy movie theater that we find ourselves most often in on Wednesday nights when we record this show. I'm joined by the man in New Berlin,
Alex, the producer.
I will never stop using that because I do think that's one of the coolest little pieces of trivia that I found out.
When I told you that they had to change the name after World War I here.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, well then. So yes, we are joined.
And the statue of Kaiser Wilhelm was torn apart and nobody's been able to find it.
So we are joined with Alex, and of course we welcome our esteemed guest host. We always love having him with us, coming from the great land of Michigan itself,
Aaron Pollyea. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's always exciting to watch these things with like you guys. Now, sometimes we see some stuff that isn't so good, and I'm looking at you last week, because I fucking hated that. But
I don't know if I like that one more than this one.
I liked a lot more.
Now, what we saw this time, as we mentioned on our last show, is from Vinegar Syndrome, the Immortalizer, 1989 horror ?
Yeah, it's a lot more horror than I thought it was going to. It's kind of like a horror sci-fi hybrid-ish. To me, what this is, that it has the idea of a trauma movie with a much higher budget, much better acted than I thought.
But less plot than a trauma film.
Less plot than a trauma. Like, it kind of meanders around for a while, but it was more entertaining than I thought it was originally going to be. Like, I don't know. Yeah. This one I liked a lot more than I thought I was going to. So let's kind of go around the table. Let's get our initial thoughts. So let's go all the way down south to Michigan, and let's start with Aaron. What did you think starting out?
Well, okay, I will agree. I think that it meandered a lot. Overall, it was okay. But the first part of the movie, let's say the first half hour, it's pretty engaging. The acting is good. It's well lit. It's well directed. It's competently made. But then, like, the middle third, let's say even the middle half of the movie, it just kind of wanders around aimlessly, and it's usually, oh look, the undead get to come out, or they're not undead, but you know, the weird people in the basement escape again and wander around the house. Maybe we should actually try to talk about what this movie actually is about first before we get into all that. But
well, let's call this our initial impressions, and then we'll give a summary.
Yeah, the initial impression is that the first, let's say, quarter is pretty engaging. The middle half is very slow plotting, and it could have had a lot more in it. And then the last quarter was, again, pretty good.
Yeah, this felt like before you got on, Michael, we were sort of discussing off air that it felt like this 96-minute movie was made with a lot of scenes that they could purposely trim to make that 74-minute TV 2-hour movie cut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or that they could cut it for other markets. Because there was a lot of one guy going to get help and then not getting help, and then going to get help and then not getting help, and they escape the basement and try to eat things, and then get put back, and a lot of repetition. It's like a meandering TV movie, but then gorier and with more to it than what you would have expected. Like, it was better than a cable movie of the era for sure, but it was missing something in the middle. It was missing a B plot, I think, that could have really enhanced it. But it was, overall, I enjoyed myself watching it. So that's my take on it.
So I'd say it's a pretty good consensus here that we liked what we saw, didn't love, but we liked it. So who wants to give a summary, more or less, in the elevator pitch?
Okay, I might be able to do it.
All right.
You have a couple very smart but immoral doctors who have figured out a way to take brains out of one person and put them into another body to give rich people basically immortality. So rich people will come to him and choose a body that the doctors or their henchmen have kidnapped from the street, usually young, attractive people, men or women. And these rich people get to choose their new body, and they go under the knife and they wake up in their new body with their old voice.
Yes, their old voice that was mimed over top of it. Like, it was so
ADR,
it was so yeah. That also, it's not that expensive. $1.8 million, and they'll get you a cadaver or make a cadaver for you to replace your body.
Yeah, so
it's not too bad.
The basic plot centers around a group of 4 college students, 2 guys and 2 girls, and they're jumped after leaving a horror movie, and they walk down the wrong alleyway when suddenly a whole bunch of Neanderthal-looking cavemen type people jump out of the shadows.
Yeah, covered with like large pulsating hematomas.
Yeah, and hug them into unconsciousness.
Yes.
They get hugged to be unconscious, and then they're thrown into a bread van and towed back to a nice home in Beverly Hills. In the first scene, we do see a cop getting killed that kind of tries to intervene, and it's mentioned later once, but that could have been a whole plot.
That's what I thought the B plot could have been. Is the police slowly investigating this, and you could have, in those meandering spots, cut back to the police as they're calling up, and they're like, "This looks weird," and maybe doing research on this clinic that popped up out of nowhere, and maybe finding out where they had been in the past. Like, you could have done some sort of background check, and that could have filled 15 minutes of the time.
Yeah. So that's the basic overall plot. These college students, one guy is not properly drugged, where the other 3 people are drugged. So you don't really have a lot of interaction between the one guy that isn't properly drugged, wakes up and is able to escape, and his friends, which is unfortunate up until the end. And there's a little bit of interaction. Otherwise, it's this guy trying to convince the cops, anyone, that there are psychopathic doctors killing people in this wonderful clinic that looks like a house in Beverly Hills.
And that pretty much sums it up. And then hilarity ensues. Random nudity, though not as much as I was expecting.
No, only 2 times. Only two times.
Although
you know what
a little
that
bit
means.
of rapey nudity at one point.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
A bit of that. Not quite Kill Bill level, but it was getting there.
Yeah, I was like, please stop.
But you know what that means, Michael?
What?
Creature features.
Yeah, the makeup effects were not bad. I mean, they weren't, like, look at this way. Greg Nicotero or Tom Savini is going to say, hey, look at this. This is my demo reel. But better. They were like super strong, toxy zombie creatures who I guess had, I don't even know what the hell these things were. They were like chuds or something.
It looked like whatever chemical process happened to them made them mutatedly strong.
Yeah.
Except for that.
it's whatever the green liquid that the doctor injects people with that allows him to remove their brains and put them into a different body, and it allows their nerves to heal. He said like 1 out of X amount of people end up having this weird reaction where basically they become psychopathic, muscled people, I guess. And they go crazy and they just try to kill everybody.
And that green stuff was like
reanimator
neon,
fluid?
Reanimator fluid meets Ninja Turtle ooze.
I mean, I'm glad it looks consistent between the Ninja Turtle movies and the Reanimator franchise. Although, one thing I noticed when Aaron was describing this, like, this movie where you effectively become immortal for $1.8 million or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, $900K up front, $900K when it's done.
Yeah, that hey, you will never die as long as you keep getting new bodies
every 20 to 30 years.
I did notice a small flaw with this plan when you guys were talking. So it is established once you get a new body, you should be good to go, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Your brain still ages.
Yeah, it still ages. That's fine.
Well, no. The idea was that fluid stops it from aging.
Okay, because I was just thinking. I wonder if
I never even thought that. It's that that new body does age, but you just get another body to go into.
No, what Mike's saying is that the brain will still age.
Yeah, because you're still carrying an original piece of it's like transporting a hard drive from one computer to another. Sure, the hard drive still works and the motherboard's all brand new. That hard drive is eventually going to fail.
Take an old car battery and put it in a new model, sort of thing.
Yeah. But the ooze heals all nerve damage, so it would make the brain. At least the way it was described in the movie. Now I know it's bad science, and I actually gave it a bad science point, but that it actually heals all the nerves, and it's like this miracle drug anyway. So it
was like you were being injected with like the most amount of stem cells you could possibly imagine, and they refresh the brain as well as adhere to the body.
Yeah, I just thought it was one of those weird little plot things, but then again...
How about this? Old lady goes in, comes out as young girl, magically takes over her life.
Yeah, there's going to be some problems with identity theft.
Like you have to be so rich. You have to be like Jeff Bezos rich that you can like live off of cash for the rest of your life because you can't go around with your ID.
They tried to explain it by saying, hey, oh my God, this is a plastic surgery clinic. And look at the work that they did on me. You know, like her driver is just like, man, you guys are miracle workers. Okay.
Except if you ever have to give blood or give ID, you know, if you ever have any DNA tested or fingerprinted.
1989.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Sorry. DNA was like, new.
So new. Although one thing I will give this movie kind of credit for, and this movie has a very interesting concept. Like I was more intrigued by it than I was anything, but say, you know what? If some new director wanted to revisit this idea, especially with more modern science and sort of update it, like this could actually be a halfway decent movie in terms of a fun B-movie schlocky thing. I'm not saying this is going to get like the kind of Blumhouse treatment anytime soon, but I don't think it's terrible.
I mean, it's similar to John Woo's Face Off, right?
Yeah, it's John Woo's Face Off, but with gore.
I compared it to Frankenhooker in a lot of ways.
Oh my God, I haven't heard that movie referenced in like 30 years.
See, Frankenhooker is hilarious, but I also hate it because it's just so awful. But in a lot of ways, it just reminded me of Frankenhooker.
Or what was it? The Bruce Campbell movie, was it The Man with the Screaming Brain?
Yeah,
I
think so.
Or that
movie's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, actually, it's like that Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns was going to
transfer his brain into Homer.
Yeah. I think that's what it was, wasn't it?
And then he gets his head attached to Homer. He's like, well, I guess we're going to be living together for a while. And then Smithers has his head attached to the dog. Woof, sir. Yeah. Or was that a different episode? It all blends together after a while.
Dude, 700 episodes at this point. Being the youngest one here, there's not a single moment of my memory where that show hasn't been on.
That's crazy.
Youngest.
because I was born in '87 and the show started in '88.
Say, and Aaron, you're not too much older than me, right?
I was born in '77.
Okay, so yeah, you're a couple years older than me.
Yeah.
Like I knew that The Simpsons were from another show previously because my parents had
The
like,
Tracy
VHS.
Ullman show, yeah.
They had tapes of that show. They used to tape it every time, and I never thought it was funny. But
And I haven't watched The Simpsons in 20 years now, I want to say.
it's the same as it was 20 years ago, but it's still not as good as it was like 5 years before that. So if that gives you any indication, I watch it for the Halloween episodes, and that's it.
This movie had one of the greatest what the fuck deaths ever that I've seen yet in any of these films that I've at least reviewed with you. And it's right at the end where the henchman gets stabbed through the spine with a pistol, and he's like stumbling around the room with a pistol stabbed into his spine, and then the gun goes off and blows out his chest.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I can think of one other movie where a person got stabbed with a gun, and that's Halloween Part 4 or 5. I can't remember which, but the sheriff's daughter goes to attack Michael Myers. Michael Myers grabs the shotgun and impales her to a wall.
I mean, mind you, I judge all crazy over-the-top deaths by Hard Ticket to Hawaii with the rocket launcher hitting the guy on the skateboard.
The frisbee.
Dude, that's...
Which
hint, razor blade.
Hint, our next episode is going to be on the first 3 movies in that series.
Thank God. I love these movies. You'll hear me then.
But yes, how about the death of one of the henchmen?
Where he gets stabbed
via having the cattle prod that gives the same lightning that Ernest Goes to Jail used.
Yeah, he got Palpatine lightning there.
Yeah, he got stabbed in the chest with the current on somehow, even though it's not being touched anymore.
Yep.
Brought to the ground, then torn apart and eaten.
It did get a point. I did actually write that. Stabbed with a cattle prod in the chest, shocked for 30 seconds, then eaten by mutant brain damaged people. That's
while he stares at the camera screaming too.
Yeah.
It's like, don't look at the camera. I'll just look at the camera for 30 seconds while I scream.
Yeah. Oh, and did you notice when the main character was in the mutant's cage area, he's like shaking the door like he's locked in because he wants to get the gun, and then he just opens it.
Yeah.
Later. Like,
nope, that I missed.
Not locked. It's not locked at all. Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, the only good thing is his friend retained a tiny bit of humanity, I guess, because he hadn't fully turned yet.
Yeah, he was Bub the zombie.
And
is that too obscure? That's
no. That is Day of the Dead right there.
All right.
Which, yes. My God, we should talk about the Return of the Living Dead movies at some point.
Oh my God.
Because I love those.
Well, as we get closer to Halloween, we'll see. It all depends on what we're sent to look at first.
I am mentally scarred from those movies, and I'll tell you, I have to have a sidebar on this. I apologize.
Yes, absolutely. Is it the brain scene? Because I saw that when I was 10, and I almost peed my pants.
Well, it's the fact that I think I first saw the Return of the Living Dead movie when I was like 6, and I shouldn't have been watching TV, and it terrified me beyond rational thought. And for years, that movie, even looking at the cover, would give me nightmares.
That was Terminator 1 for me. At 3 years old, I saw Arnold pull his eye out.
It was the tar zombie in the end that really terrified me.
Okay, yeah, that'll do it.
And it still gives me chills even thinking about it. That's such a good effect.
I distinctly remember being 3 or 4 and sitting with my parents while they rented Terminator, watching it, and being mesmerized, not speaking at all, just mouth open. My parents turning to each other, and my mom saying, we should probably take Alex out of the room. This is kind of, pretty extreme where Arnold pulls out his eyeball with the X-Acto knife. And my dad going, he's a little kid, he won't remember. And me having this conversation, relating it to them, and then looking at each other, realizing they never told me that story, and then going, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Like 10 years later. So it was that, and the furnace from Home Alone scared me. So that tells you the spectrum I was on. Kids movies scared me, and I also watched Arnold pull at his eye.
That's something to kind of talk about with like this movie. I don't think there was any genuine scares. Like this was you can't call it spectacle because there wasn't anything over the top really. There wasn't anything spectacular for gore
Yeah.
effects.
This was just a
Run of the mill.
I guess not a creature feature like you would think. It's more like
It's
like a body horror or gore thriller, whatever you want to call it.
There's
It's not scary.
Like, and I said, there's one special effect where they show like people's brain cases open, and it looks really bad up until you reverse the shot and you're kind of looking up towards the faces of the people on the tables, and the doctor pulls out what looks very clearly to be a real brain. That's the only really good effect. That's probably a pig brain or a cow brain or something.
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely
a real brain. And I was like, okay, good job. I'll give you a point. Good job.
As far as clever writing goes, I'll give kudos. One thing I wasn't really expecting initially is they're hiring a new doctor to assist them, only to find out they're assessing how skilled his hands are and his motor functions, so the main doctor can then take his body.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was a clever kind of side thing for them to slip in there. One other thing that I liked too, I liked the neighbor team up, though it didn't last long enough.
The old lady with the giant shotgun.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be awesome. This is going to be like a buddy cop thing. Then she gets wiped out.
They should have done more with that.
Yeah, I was really hoping.
Cool.
Like it would have been interesting if I don't know. I was really hoping they were going to go off the wall with it and like switch her brain with a dog or something weird.
Oh, weird. Wow. I don't know.
Like I thought they were going to go more trauma, like strange, or like lobotomize her or something, like do something strange. But there wasn't a whole lot of that. It was a lot of the monsters trying to escape over and over and over again, and then occasionally they would feed the dead bodies to the people by putting them into like a
giant
chute
wood chipper.
It was supposed to be a wood chipper, but it looked like a giant meat grinder. That's how it was behaving.
Like a little pail next to it, and I'm like, man, that would be a lot more messy than it is.
Yeah.
I thought would have been really cool was, hey, right in the beginning of the film when the guy escapes the house for the first time, that woman is across the street watching with binoculars, right? And then he runs to the police station to try to talk to the cops. All this makes sense. And instead of like escaping jail or whatever, however he gets out, I can't even remember that. It's the boring part of the movie. It would have been cool if that woman would have come and actually bailed him out and said, I saw you there. My daughter or whatever disappeared into that place and never came out. And you're the only one that came out, and I want your help. And then that gives like a momentum to the plot where this woman has now gotten into this and is helping him. And I don't know.
What I would have thought would have been really cool is if she helps him, she makes up this, and turns out it's all a made up story, and she wants his body.
Yeah, maybe.
That would have been interesting. Something to do that would have been different. Could have made it a body swap movie, like a gender swap movie. But they were just looking for pure, I guess, schlocky horror at the time.
Sure.
I think if they remade it now, that's what would probably end up happening. There'd be like a full range of body swaps. I will say this: all a bunch of like nobodies I've never heard of in this movie. The actor that played the main doctor, the heavier set guy, he was having a good time in this movie, and he seemed pretty relaxed in the role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody else was pretty standard fare for, the time period of low budget theatrical features. But like I was trying to look at like the different actors. I didn't recognize anybody from anything.
I know the nurse had done a lot of stuff during like, I think the 60s and 70s. This was evidently, I think, her final movie, according to IMDb. Don't quote me on that. Actually, since we're kind of pseudo reviewing this anyway, what did the special features say about this movie?
There's an interview with the director and one with the director of photography, cinematographer. The director, it's honestly pretty standard fare. It's interesting. There's a little behind the scenes, low budget. They were trying to stretch their filming time to meet sort of, I guess, the 95-minute quota. So they admitted that there was a bit of a thin script. It was a little more interesting with the cinematographer, where they went into how he lit it and the challenges involved with shooting in the house that they had to shoot in. Because if they were able to shoot in an actual clinic, there would have been a lot more light to work with.
You know what's something that I noticed, and I caught this in the beginning of the movie, and I don't know whether it was intentional or not. Maybe this is my brain just kind of connecting to unrelated things. I think they mentioned spookies in the beginning. Because they're in the diner, and they talk about swamp monsters in a basement.
Well, they said an Italian film.
Then that's kind of funny.
Well, because she says, I thought you said we were seeing an art house picture, an art movie, and he says it's Italian. That's art, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah. Which is another Vinegar Syndrome release.
You're right, Michael. The only person that had really any major credits to their name was the one that played the nurse.
Yeah, she did a lot of
Melody. She was one of the stars of the TV show F Troop.
Elle Marie, the old lady from across the street.
Yeah,
she did Fallout voices. She was the Powalski Preservation Shelters in Fallout games.
Oh, that's cool.
Really?
Yeah.
That's neat. So she must have been ancient.
Yeah, she died back in 2018, it says.
She would have been like 100 or like 1,000,000 years old, because she was like 80 back then.
Yeah, but it says she died at 89.
Oh, wow.
Age 89.
Oh, then time was not kind to her.
No.
Because she was like 64 there.
So, I mean, overall, let's kind of begin to kind of wind things down here as we finish up the Immortalizer. What would you recommend to people that have some disposable income in their pocket and they're looking at this? Would you recommend it? I
would recommend it personally if it's on sale, and it actually is right now, and you wanted to do like a double feature, like movie night. It's best to watch with friends, I think. This is one that I would say you're going to watch over and over and over and over and over again, but it is something that if you are a collector and you want to get, a bunch of horror films, this is one that I'm willing to bet very few people have seen.
Yeah, because I've never even heard of this movie, like, at all. And I will say this would be a wonderful movie for the MST3K crowd to kind of check out, because if you got people to riff over this could be really funny.
Yeah, it could, because there's giant chunks of the movie where there's just nothing happening, and you can easily voice over big chunks of this movie. I mean, it depends on how I would recommend it. It depends on how much it's for sale. Like, if it's, let's say, $25, to me, I don't know. Maybe not. Because it's only worth watching once to me, just because there isn't a lot going on in the movie. But if you're going to get it along with a whole bunch of other movies and see it with your friends, and hey, it probably is worth it then.
Yeah.
But
and you know how we were talking, sorry, about how it was shot well and it was lit well.
It was.
The cinematographer, Alan Queso.
He's from 6 Feet Under, isn't he?
Yeah, he was nominated 4 times for director of photography on 6 Feet Under. So, went on to have a pretty prolific career with HBO.
That's something
it is really worth watching for that.
One thing I have noticed, a lot of these Vinegar Syndrome releases that we've looked at, such as Spookies and the Immortalizer, a lot of people who are featured in these movies tend to go on to have fairly decent careers afterwards. I mean, everybody in Hollywood has to start somewhere. I mean, James Cameron started with Piranha 2, The Spawning. So that should give you an idea of some of the caliber of some people that can come from really humble beginnings. And hell, Tom Hanks in Mazes and Monsters. It's a far out game.
Well, look at how many people like De Niro or Brian De Palma and some of these other directors of like the most popular 70s and 80s and 90s crime movies. Yeah. They started making low budget skin flicks for either Roger Corman or the Troma Pictures back in the 70s.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Aaron on this one. As of this recording, it is on sale for $24.99 USD. I'm going to say maybe wait for a price drop, either from Vinegar Syndrome themselves or maybe see if Amazon.
They just had a big sale, but they do sales a few times a year where if you bundle a few together, you get like 20, 30, or 40% off.
Yes, if you can get this as part of a bundle, totally worth it. Because as Aaron said, it's definitely worth watching once on your own. If you can watch it with friends, you could probably have a pretty good time making fun of this. I mean, there is some eye candy, but there isn't a lot of it. It's a little uncomfortable at one point. That's something that should be said. But it does have a pretty cool effect, as we did mention, with the whole kind of brain thing. That was a lot more visceral than I thought it was going to be. And everybody seems to be having a pretty good time. There's no overly schlocky acting, but it is fun. It seems like everybody knew what they were doing here. And they're like, let's make a movie. Let's have some fun while doing it, and we'll get a paycheck.
It has a very classic horror movie ending. In fact, the ending could have been out of an episode of like Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
You know what this seems like?
Deal.
A bigger budget Tales from the Crypt episode.
Like if they made a TV movie, or like the 90s, like Bordello Blood and those sorts of ones that they made.
Yeah, like honestly, if you could up the budget here and maybe trim the script so it's a little tighter and a little less kind of wandering around a house, this is a pretty cool idea. And that's something that I really like about this movie. Neat idea, neat concept. Would love to see somebody revisit this again. But so those are my thoughts. Alex, your closing bits?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but you're right. If they were able to trim it and made a 75-minute cut, it would have been like a really good like Halloween movie on like TNT or the USA Network or some cable channel back in the early 90s. Yeah,
like honestly, if you could get someone like Joe Bob Briggs to do this during Monster Vision, sure. That's pretty much going to do it for this edition of Twig's Loose Cannon. As always, big thank you to Vinegar Syndrome for providing us with this review copy. And our final verdict for this will be maybe bundle this if you can. So keep an eye out on the Vinegar Syndrome website. Otherwise, wait for a price drop.
If you're a big collector, you love horror, it's worth picking up because it is on sale already on its own. But otherwise, if you're on the fence, maybe bundle it with a couple things when there's a really good sale.
Yeah. So next time on the show, what are we going to be covering, Alex?
We're going to do, because Aaron's been bucking us and I've been waiting for you to watch, Michael, the first 3 movies in the Andy Sedaris film collection, which is 12 features. So we have, I believe the first one is
there's Malibu Express is the first.
Malibu Express.
Hard Ticket to Hawaii is number 2, and Picasso Trigger is number 3.
That's right.
Is it bad that I have all these movies memorized?
Well, it's bad that and you'll find this, Michael, as I've seen most of them, there is distinct periods in his film career where movies, like the first movie, looks like a 70s medium to high budget movie, an actual movie, and then his movies from the second through like the 6th or so or 7th have a similar look and feel, and then as you enter into the 90s, you see it shift into the 90s look. It's and you can actually see like how theatrical cinema, low budget cinema, and then direct to video changed throughout. Like it's a whole smorgasbord.
And special features on those are all worth watching.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we will be checking those out on Twig's Loose Cannon. So as we make our way out of the cinema, make sure you clean up after yourselves. Make sure you're wearing your mask because God knows what's in the air here. And, make sure you put your trash in the bin on your way out. So for This Week in Geek's Loose Cannon, beginning in Michigan,
Aaron Pollyea.
And from Kitchener,
Alex the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on Twig's Loose Cannon.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at thisweekingeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at thisweekingeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your
shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.